Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Noem, good to see you again.
Good to see you, too.
If I could just start with a Missouri question. Last time you and I visited over in the Homeland Security Committee was shortly following a massive series of tornadoes in the state of Missouri, and you and I talked about that. You pledged your full support and FEMA support in cleaning up the devastation which has happened. I thank you for that. I just want to follow up on one challenge that has come in the wake of the devastation. In the partnership with the state of Missouri, the city of St. Louis has stood up a debris removal project. Local officials currently estimate that about 10,000 homes, these were very significant tornadoes, about 10,000 homes in the area will require some assistance, debris removal assistance, by the time that efforts are completed. FEMA has very helpfully helped to fund this debris removal. Thank you for that. My question for you is, some of the conditions that have been placed on the funds by FEMA mean that only 100 or 200 homes out of those 10,000 can actually get access to FEMA debris removal funds. Here's my question for you. Would you be willing to work with me and the state of Missouri to see if we can remove some of this red tape so that more folks, more residents in the city, we're talking about thousands and thousands of people now, can get access to the debris removal and cleanup and get back in their homes if they need to, have their homes appropriately remedied so that folks can get a roof over their head?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Thank you again for all of your help on this. It's really been tremendous. I've heard a lot of complaining. You've heard a lot of complaining today. Let's just take a second to talk about the unqualified success that you have enjoyed since coming to office and been a big part of. Since the president has taken office, daily migrant encounters are down 92% from their peak under Joe Biden. Daily border apprehensions are down 95%. In fact, if I've got my numbers right, you correct me if I'm wrong, last year Southwest border apprehensions came in at the lowest annual total since 1970. So in 55 years, for 7 consecutive months, Border Patrol has released 0 illegal aliens into the country. 0. I mean, that is really something. And I want to make sure I get this number right. Removals. Your department reports that more than 2.5 million illegal aliens have left the United States since January of last year, over 620,000 through formal deportation proceedings, and an estimated 1.9 million through self-deportation. That's just an extraordinary record, a complete turnaround from the utter chaos and disaster we saw at the border under your predecessor. Just give us a sense, I mean, what does this mean, for example, for the flow of illegal drugs into our country? How has what's happened at the border, the effective closing of the border to crime and illegals, how's that affected the flow of drugs into
Senator,
our states?
with President Trump prioritizing having a secure border, that has cut the flow of fentanyl into this country by 56% over that border. Also because of the interdiction efforts that we've had between the Coast Guard being out there on Operation Riverwall, but also on our maritime waters doing interdiction there as well in partnership with CBP, in partnership with ICE and the Department of War, which are fantastic partners for us. We have confiscated and interdicted over 1.7 billion lethal doses of drugs, which means that is 1.7 billion people whose lives were saved because we stopped the cartels and other drug manufacturers from proliferating it on our children and our grandchildren.
How about crime? What has it meant for crime in this country?
We have historic low crime rates. In fact, since we've been keeping this data for 125 years, we've never had a lower murder rate than what we have right now. Even though we deal with challenges in sanctuary cities and in areas where they don't partner with us to bring and address public safety threats, we still have done fantastic work in getting criminals, murderers, and rapists off of our streets and protecting the American people.
How about human trafficking?
It's incredible the amount of ability that HSI has brought to the table in partnering with the FBI and going after human traffickers. In fact, of the 450,000 children that Joe Biden lost track of, allowed cartels to manipulate and traffickers to abuse, and even the government paid sponsors to abuse these children, we have found 145,000 of them, and we're not going to stop until we find every single one.
I'm glad that you mentioned child trafficking because it's so important, and I'll never forget having a whistleblower from HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, which you oversee, come to me in 2023 and reveal that 600 HSI investigators who were assigned to child exploitation and fentanyl cases, 600 of them had been pulled off of those child exploitation and fentanyl cases and moved to the southern border to, in the words of the whistleblower, make sandwiches for illegal immigrants and ferry them back and forth to doctor's appointments. at the same time that the administration in power at the time, the Biden administration, was, as you said, allowing and facilitating the largest child trafficking ring in American history. You have, I'm confident, remedied that problem and reassigned those HSI agents back to child exploitation, back to the interdiction of fentanyl. Let me just ask you about where child trafficking is moving now, which is increasingly online. I want to show you a chart here that is truly shocking, I think. This chart records the number of images and videos of suspected child abuse uploaded just in the United States, just in the year 2023. The far right side records the number just in 2023, 104,370,572 images of exploited children. In that same year, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children estimated that there were 20,500,000 cases, individual cases of suspected child abuse and child exploitation online. Now, there are many facets of this, but many of these images are being hosted on big tech platforms, social media platforms, and now AI platforms. We talked about Homeland Security investigations. You have a mandate and a unit to investigate child exploitation, to work with the FBI to prosecute it. My question is, first, are you getting cooperation when it comes to identifying the children in these images? Are you getting cooperation from the social media platforms who frequently are hosting these images to identify and then to take down the images? Are they helping you in your work of going after the abusers?
Yes, they are partnering with us. There's always more we can do, but President Trump has done a fantastic job bringing them to the table and getting them to engage with us to go after these criminals and these individuals who abuse our children.
You know, my big concern is with all of these data centers, I think there's 3,000 or 4,000 in the United States and another 4,000 that are coming online. If we don't take action soon and keep the pressure up to get rid of these images and to get the trafficking rings that are using these platforms to carry on their exploitation and to feed their trafficking rings, if we don't do that, I'm afraid that these data centers are going to be child porn libraries. You know, we're going to have 4,000 more child porn libraries in the United States of America. I don't want that. I know that you don't want that, and I just want to call on these companies again here today to take down these images and to allow the victims of these images and of this exploitation to be able to get into court and have their day in court. Currently, these companies are completely immune from any accountability in court, as you know, Madam Secretary. This is completely anomalous and totally unjust. And the companies ought to say, we will take down these images, we will work cooperatively with you, we will not support the traffickers, and we will stop this epidemic of child exploitation. Let me ask you one more thing about this. You know, with all of these images of kids online, I was shocked to learn recently that hundreds of thousands of children in these images are unidentified, which means that we don't know who they are, we don't know where they are, and maybe most significantly, we don't know where their abusers are. Now, I know that DHS works very hard on this. You have an entire section that works on victim identification and rescue. My question is to you, is it time for Congress maybe to give you some more resources? Yeah, I know that you've got agents who are working hard, but the truth of the matter is, I was looking through your budget, you know, you just don't have that many folks who are able to work on victim identification. I was looking at the Interpol numbers. There's multiple databases of these exploited children. In the Interpol database alone, 90,000 kids are completely unidentified. In the UK's database, it's over 200,000. So here are these kids, there are pictures of them getting abused, exploited. We don't know who they are. We don't know where to send folks. Would it be helpful to you? Here's my question. Would it be helpful to you if Congress said, you know what, we're going to create more analysts, more child abuse expert positions, more forensic analysts, and more prosecutors to give to you to look at these images, figure out who these kids are, and go after their abusers? Would that be helpful in tackling this epidemic?
Yes, it'd be incredibly helpful, and especially HSI are experts at this work, and to have more resources to focus on these investigations would free more kids from that life of victimhood.
Tremendous. Well, I look forward to working with you on that. I'm going to introduce legislation to do just that. Thank you for the terrific work you're doing to end the epidemic of child exploitation in our country, to find the missing children that were brought in over the border, but also to find these children and to bring their abusers to justice. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Welch.
Support journalism you trust. Support PBS News.
Donate now, or even better, start a monthly contribution today.